well, and I also hope that you had an amazing day so far. All right, so for today, we are going to be doing our grade 6 English lesson on adjectives that compare. So we're going to be doing our grade 6 English lesson on adjectives that compare. And before we go on to our lesson, you're going to log in to aplusstudents.ca, and you're going to log in with your username as well as your password. All right, so once you've logged in with your username as well as your password, and then you're going to select the subject of language arts. And we're going to grade 6. All right, we're going to then scroll down our chapters until we get to the chapter of adjectives that compare. All right, so our chapter for today is adjectives that compare. And under the chapter adjectives that compare, we're going to be doing the lessons of form and use comparative and superlative adjectives. And then also good, better, best, bad, worse, and worst. So our chapter is adjectives that compare. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on is form and use comparative and superlative adjectives, and then good, better, best, bad, worse, and worst. All right. So, like we said, that our chapter is adjectives that compare, and we're doing it our grade 6 lesson. Hey. So, adjectives that compare. An adjective that compare two people, places, things, or actions, right? So comparative adjective is an adjective that compares to people, places, things, or action. Most of the one syllable adjectives, right, will either end in er, or if we have a word with two syllables, right, we use more or less, but many more. Right? And an example of that is I think spring feels warmer than fall. So warmer than fall. We are comparing, right? This sweater is more comfortable than the other one. So sweater is two syllables. Sweater, two syllables, which means that we use the word in front of our our adjective, right? So basically, comparative adjectives, right, is where an adjective, it's an adjective that compares to people, places, things, or actions. And if we have an adjective with one syllable, right, then our word ends in er. But if we have an adjective with two syllables, right, then we use words like more or less in front of it. And then when it comes to adjectives that compare, right? When we compare adjectives, we can either use comparative adjective, right? And comparative adjectives is where we compare two nouns, right? So we compare two nouns. And then we have superlative adjectives. And then we have superlative adjectives. And with superlative adjectives, we compare three or more nouns. even to an extent that you can compare with superlative adjective, you can compare either three or more, or let's say compare sometimes yourself to the rest of the class, all of the boys, all of the girls, for example. And then when it comes to examples of adjectives, right? We have our base adjective, and then we have our comparative adjective as well as our superlative adjective. So with our base adjective, let's say small, right? Small. So the base adjective is small. If we compare two things, then we can say that the other one is, or the one is smaller. So we can say the one is smaller. But if we are comparing three or more things, then we can say that it is the smallest. Then we have our base, which is good. Remember, our comparative is where we compare two things, right? Or two places, or two people, or actions. So if our base word is good, and then our comparative is better. So our comparative is better. And then the superlative, if we compare three or more things, and we say that this is the best. We don't say good, gooder, goodest. No, we do not say good, gooder, goodest. We say good, better, and best, right? Not good, gooder, goodest. You need to cut that out, right? Once again, we do not say good and then comparative gooder and then superlative goodest. No, we don't say that. We say it is good. Then if you compare it and then we say it is better, because now we can say it's better than the other one. And when it comes to superlative, then we can say that this one is the best, or that one is the best compared to the rest. All right. So if we go to our first lesson, which is to form and use comparative and superlative adjectives, right? So we can use adjectives to compare people, places, or even things. So comparative adjectives. So comparative adjectives, right? It compares things or it compares a group to some other things or group, right? So they usually end in ER. So comparative adjective, it compares a thing or a group or other things or group, right? But we basically compare, it needs to be at least two things, two people, two places, right? So we are comparing those things. And then it ends in ER. Then we have superlative adjective, right? And superlative adjectives, they compare a thing or group of things to a larger group that is part of it, and they usually end in EST, which means that with superlative adjectives, we compare three or more things. If, for example, we have one syllable adjectives, right? Like tall or soon or small. That's one syllable adjectives. So for most one syllable adjectives and for two syllable adjectives that end in Y, the comparative adjective ends in ER and the superlative in EST. And here we have an example. This is one syllable. So the base adjective is tall. So our base adjective is tall. And if we compare, right, whatever that is tall, let's make an example of a person that is tall. Jack is tall. Now, if I compare Jack to Sarah, then I can say Jack is taller than Sarah. So that is where the comparison comes in. Taller than Sarah. With superlative, right? Three or more. That means that I need to compare Jack to almost all of the boys in class, or the boys playing maybe a sport or whatever, or a boy in height. Let's say in height. And then we can say that Jake is the tallest of them all, or the tallest in class, right? Which means that there is maybe 11 boys in the class. So we are comparing that 11 boys to how tall Jack is, or Jake is. So he is the tallest. Then we have adjectives with more than one syllable, right? And if they have more than one syllable, we add more to make a comparative adjective, and we add most to make superlative adjective. So we have our base adjective. So it's intelligent, right? Intelligent. Definitely more than one syllable. So now, if we compare that to somebody else, right? Say if we compare, say if we say Sarah is intelligent, now we compare Sarah to Natasha, and then we can say Sarah is more intelligent than Natasha. And if Sarah is the top learner in class, then we can say Sarah is the most intelligent of the whole class, or of all of the girls. So that is how we use more, or how we use most. All right, so now we need to complete the sentence with the correct comparative or superlative adjective. So, a study has found that the surface of Saturn's moon, is rigid than previously thought. So, a study has found that the surface of Saturn's moon, is rigid than previously thought. So, if we were to choose the correct adjective that compare, then we're going to use more rigid. So we should basically first decide if it is comparative, comparing two things, or if it's superlative, comparing three or more things. And then the sentence compares two things, how we think of the surface of Titans now and how we used to think of the surface of Titan. So this is basically comparing two things. And if it's comparing two things, then it is a comparative adjective, right? It is some comparative adjective. And rigid has two syllables. And if it has two syllables, then we cannot say rigider. We now need to say more rigid, right? So more rigid. All right. Of all the contestants on the game show, the gentleman from Detroit had the broad knowledge of international affairs. So, of all the contestants on the game show, the gentleman from Detroit had the broad knowledge of international affairs, right? So we need to first ask ourselves, is this a comparative adjective, meaning it is comparing two things, or if it's comparing more than two things? And in this case, it looks as if it's an international affair, then more than two things are being compared. So in this case, it is superlative adjective, right? So it is a superlative adjective. And since it has one syllable, right, we are just going to say it is broadest. So, of all the contestants on the game show, the gentleman from the door had the broadest knowledge of international affairs. Well done. Maria thinks that Romeo and Juliet, the romantic play that William Shakespeare wrote, is the romantic play. And romantic is has more than one syllable. So Maria thought thinks that Romeo and Juliet is the romantic play that William Shakespeare wrote. So we now need to find out what is being compared, right? So Romeo and Juliet and all plays written by Shakespeare, which means that this is a superlative adjective. It's a superlative, yeah, adjective, right? So if it's a superlative adjective and there is, it's a romantic, has more than one syllable, and then we're going to say that this is most romantic. So Maria thinks that Romeo and Juliet is the most romantic play in the Shakespeare that Shakespeare wrote, because we specifically using most as a superlative adjective because Romeo and Juliet is being compared to basically all of the plays that William Shakespeare wrote. All right. We need to complete the sentence with the correct comparative and superlative adjective. The molasses cookie that Lindsay bought at the bake sale was moist or moister than the brownie. We need to either say which one it is. Moist or moister than the brownie. So we're going to say moister. So it is moister. According to the news report I saw yesterday, last summer, cool was the cool summer on record. Is it the cool or the coolest summer on record? So if we are saying it is coolest, and then that is superlative. So according to the news report I saw yesterday, last summer was the coolest summer on record. All right. When Tina was a baby, she had the plump cheeks of all the four kids in her family. The plump. Is it the plump or the plumpiest? Or plumpest, sorry. Plumpest cheeks of all kids in her family. All right, so we can just say she has the plumpest because her cheeks being compared to everybody's in the family. So Miss Chapman prefers living in California because the climate is much mild than Minnesota, where she grew up. So is it mild or milder? Mild or milder? So, which means that Mrs. Chapman prefers living in California. So the two states are being compared, California and Minnesota. So, which means that this is a comparative adjective, which means that we are going to say it is milder. And then, of all the contestants on the game show, the gentleman from Detroit had we can say, the broadest knowledge of international affairs. All right. So now we're going on to the next one, which is good, better, best, bad, worst, and worst. Guys, once again, we do not say good, gooder, goodest. Nope. Worst, worst, or worstest. Nope. We don't say things like that. All right. And once again, we say that adjectives, they compare people, places, and things. And a comparative adjective compare two things, right? Or group, or some of the things or group. And they usually end in ER. As well as superlative compares three or more things. Group things to a larger group that is part of it, and they usually end in EST. So when it comes to adjectives, good and bad are irregular. So we have our base, right, which is good. So if we compare that adjective, and then we can say it is better. Thank you. It's better. I am better. And then superlative, right, where it's being compared to more than three people. And then we say best. So good, better, best. All right. And once again, we don't say bad, badder, baddest all the time. We say bad, it is worse, and it is worst. So now we are going to complete the sentence with the correct superlative or comparative adjective. In golf, the player with the most points usually has is it the bad score? So in golf, the player with the most points usually have is it bad, worse, or worst score? All right, so we're going to say the worst. They have the worst score. So in this case, it is bad, worse, and worst. So to going back to our sentence bad, if we compare, they say in golf the player with the most points has the bad score, which means that if we compare scores, then the person with the highest score, unfortunately, has to go because they have bad score. And we said bad, we have bad, worse, and we have worst. So worst. So we can say it's worst. Not just worse as in competitive, we say worst as in superlative. So bad, worse, and worst. Not bad, badder. Nope. Bad, worse, and worst. Does cable actually provide a good internet connection than DSL? So if we are comparing cable to DSL, which means that that is a comparative adjective, right? And with comparative adjective, remember we don't get good, gooder, goodest, right? We have good, better, or best. So cable does cable actually provide a better internet connection than DSL? So better. And then I've tried many different cold remedies over the years, and drinking plenty of fluids is the good one I have found so far. So we can say it is the best one, which is a superlative. Best one I have found so far. All right, so we're going to our test. All right, so we need to complete the sentence with the correct comparative and superlative adjective. The bad cereal in the world, in the whole grocery store, is marshmallow sugar puffs. Poofs. So the bad cereal in the whole grocery store is marshmallow sugar poofs, said Robbie. So now, the bad cereal is being compared to all of the other cereals. So they're saying that it is bad in the whole store, right? So we can say that it is worse, the worst cereal in the world. Because bad is our base adjective. Complete the sentence with the correct comparative or superlative. Ronald thought that the pain from the wasp sting was bad than the pain from any bee sting he had ever experienced. So bad. Yeah, we are comparing the wasp sting to any other bee sting. So bad. So Ronald thought that the pain from the wasp sting was worse than the pain from any bee sting. Worse. I have to confess that I had a good time at the football rally than the antique auction, sorry, Shelby told her dad. So we are comparing, right? Having a good time at the football rally than the antique auction. So we can then say that I have to confess that I had a better time at the football rally than at the antique auction. So better. And then many music enthusiasts debate about whether digital recordings of songs sound bad than vinyl records. So we are comparing digital record songs than vinyl records. Yes. So bad, if we're comparing the two, then we are saying it is worse. Yes. So well done. Yes, it is worse. Golden Raspberry Award, also known as Razzies, are awarded to movies than the Golden Raspberry Award Foundation believes are the bad movie of the year. So, if we are comparing, right, this is superlative. So, are we saying it is still a bad movie of the year, or is it the worst movie of the year? So, it is basically the worst movie of the year. I think I have a good chance of keeping my New Year's resolution this year than last year. I think I have a good chance of keeping my New Year's resolution this year than last year. So you still have a good chance or a better chance. So we're comparing the resolutions of this year and last year. So we're going to say, I think I have a better chance of keeping my New Year's resolution this year than last year. Yes, well done. Last one. In 1998, the publishing company Modern Library selected James Joyce's Ulysses as the good English novel of the 20th century. So good. If we were to choose the adjective, right? Then we either need to choose good or best. So in 1998, the publishing company Modern Library select James as the good English novel of the 20th century. So we're going to say as the best English novel of the 20th century. Best. All right. All right, so our chapter is adjectives that compare. And under the chapter of adjective that compares, we formed and used comparative and superlative adjectives. And when it comes to comparative adjectives, we compare two things, people or animals, for example. And superlative adjective, we compare three or more things, people, animals, right? And then we use words like good, better, best, worse, bad, and worst, right? And when we use good, better, best, we don't say good, gooder, goodest, right? We don't say best, bester, bestest. We don't say that. We say good, better, and best. All right. Okay, so we're going to use this table over here and we are going to fill in the comparative and the superlative adjectives. So here they gave us the first example already. So slow is the base adjective. Then we have comparative and we superlative. So if in the second one, right, they have the word faster, right? So in the second one, we have the word faster, right? Then it means that the name of our adjective, or the normal adjective, sorry, is going to be fast. So fast, faster, then the superlative is going to be to the superlative. So if the normal adjective is fast, the comparative adjective is faster. What is the superlative action or adverb going to be? So fast, faster. All right, so we will say it is the fastest. And then we have quickest as superlative, right? Quickest. So quickest comes from the normal adjective of quick. Quick. And if we compare it to things, people, places, and then we say it's quicker. And then we have later. Later. And our normal adjective is late. So late, comparative, later, superlative is latest. And then we have sad. And then this one is sadder. And the other one is saddest. And if the superlative is prettiest, then it means that our normal adjective is going to be pretty. And the comparative adjective is going to be prettier. And then we have calm. Let's rather fix that. Prettier. Then we have calm. And if we compare, then we say it's calmer. And if it's superlative, then we say it is the calmest. And then we have our normal adjective. If the comparative is happier, then our normal adjective is we are happy. Happy. The comparative adjective is happier. And then we have the superlative adjective, which is happiest. Then if a superlative adjective is cleanest, then our normal is going to be clean. So clean. And then the comparative. If we compare, then it's going to be cleaner. And then the last one is dark. darker, and the darkest. Right? So these are comparative adjectives, right? So we have our normal adjective, then we have the comparative adjective, and then we have the superlative adjective, which compares three or more people. Comparative compares two or more people, places, animals, or things. All right. So before we end off, can we go to a+classes.ca? a+classes.ca. So you're going to log into a+classes.ca. And once we log into a+classes.ca, we're going to learning materials. And then we go to grades 6. And we scroll down up until we get to language arts. And then we have 4 workbooks under language arts. We're going to choose the second one that says practice grammar in this language arts workbook. And then we're going to scroll up until we get to 40. All right. So we're going to page, let's see, page 22. All right, so we're on page 22 in the grammar workbook grade 6 in the a+classes.ca. And we see that we use comparative forms of an adjective to compare two things, right? And you usually form that comparative for short adjectives by adding an ER. Whales are bigger than elephants, right? It is comparing whales and elephants. We usually add more before the adjective from the comparative form of adjectives with 2 or more syllables. For example, are whales intelligent than elephants? They either say yes or no, they are more intelligent. And then we have the superlative form of adjective, which compares more than 2 or 3 things, right? And it ends in est to short adjectives to form the superlative. And whales are the biggest on earth. So biggest. But if we have syllables, more than 2 syllables, right? Then we need to use the word most. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to choose the comparative or superlative adjective form and form of adjective in the parentheses. Amanda is it the faster runner I know or fastest runner I know? All right, so we will say that she is the fastest runner I know. Ronald used to be, is it faster than Amanda or fastest than Amanda? Faster than Amanda or fastest than Amanda? If we're comparing two people and then we using ER, so it's faster. Now Ronald tries, is it harder or Ronald try hardest than before? So he's trying harder than before. And good sportsmanship is most important or more important than winning, right? So it is more important than winning. And I like to run when it is colder than today, not coldest. So colder than today. And then Amanda wants to be? Is it most famous than other runner, or more famous than other runner? So we can say that Amanda wants to be more than the other runner because there's only one other runner. And then you're going to do B on your own. So you're going to attempt B, where you need to write the comparative and superlative form adjective in the parentheses. All right. So this is now the end of our lesson on adjectives that compare. And we said with adjectives that compare, we have comparative adjective and we have superlative adjectives. And comparative adjectives compare two people, places, or things, and it ends in ER unless there are two syllables. Our adjective is at least two or more syllables, and then we put more in front of that adjective. And then we have superlative adjectives, right, which compares three or more things, people, places, right? And with superlative adjectives, if there is more than one syllable, right, or two or more syllables, then we add most in front of that adjective. All right, so that is now the end of our chapter on adjectives that compare. So, grade six, thank you very much for joining the class. Thank you for being interactive. You should have an amazing evening further. Goodbye.